Hello and welcome to today's painting demonstration. I'm going to show you how to paint a majestic oak sunset scene. This reference photo comes from a family member who just takes wonderful photographs of oak trees, and I have included the reference photo for you to see in our art community Discord, and the links for that are all below. If you are interested in following along with these tutorials more often and want to get everything on the material list, it's in the description, as well as the link for the ebook that goes into depth on how to get everything you need, set up your space, and start painting with the same techniques that I use in all of my tutorials. So let's get started. It's another day of attempting to use transparent yellow iron oxide to replace the discontinued pigment of quinacridone nickel azo gold. So what we have noticed so far in using this paint pigment is that you need a lot more of it to cover the same amount of space, so the pigment itself is not as powerful. So as you can see, I have a pretty detailed drawing of our composition. Here is our reference photo, and I am going to go the whole thing over the entire thing with this gold underpainting. And then I believe we are going to work not just from back to front, but we're also going to go from front to back. So there's going to be some back and forth in order to get to the dimension of the tree. Now this paint goes on nice, and it highlights your drawing really nicely. You can see everything that you're painting over. You don't have to worry about if your underpainting is going to be covering up anything that you put down that you want to follow along to. It doesn't really get darker. With the thickness of the paint, just a little bit, just a little bit. I will increase the value of some of these spaces. And then of course the light spot is going to be here. It's where the sun is going to be radiating out from. And the sky is a bit lighter. Today I'm using the full 8x8 space on my watercolor paper pad, and that is mostly because I have a frame that I believe this would just be perfect for, and the 6x6 painting was just not quite enough. So I'm going to see if the 8x8 is going to do it. I think this composition is pretty excellent. It shows the grandness of these trees by getting up underneath the boughs. The majestic structure while still showing the landscape around the tree just enough. So about now you can see what the range of value is for this pigment. It's not as broad a range as the quinacridone nickel azo gold. Just something to keep in mind. I thought about adding cadmium red to it to give it that more gold color, and it gets very, very similar. I showed some test swatches on my previous stream. The one on the left is what we're painting with now. The one on the right is nickel azo gold, and then this is the yellow iron oxide with a little bit of cadmium red in it. So, can be done. I just don't think I will be bothering to do that. It's another step. All right, just a light coat, cover up the rest of the white. And that is our foundation right there. I'm gonna put away the big filbert brush because we're done with that guy. And now I'm gonna put some sky color down, and I'm gonna mix the greens and our dark value while this underpainting's drying. So I've got my little silicone wedge here for mixing paint. There's gonna be a little bit of color in the sky back there behind these branches. It's got my cerulean blue and some white, and I'm gonna make a little gradient here. Up to a really, really light blue. There are some sunset colors happening behind this tree. There's just a touch of purple, which I'm gonna have a hard time resisting on the right side. I'm just gonna grab a little touch of magenta and bring it down here on the bottom side of the blue gradient. I set up my palette the same every time. Just makes it easy to know where to mix things. I'm not gonna lie, it took a while for me to figure out exactly how I wanted it. But I think it's worth it in the long run. Okay, then there's gonna be some yellows and melons. Get some titanium white on my cad yellow light, and a little bit of red on the corner there. And then I'm gonna need a little bit more white. Attach the red to get our melon. Okay, that's about right. Now to mix some greens. So I like to start with a cerulean blue and cadmium yellow for a nice medium green that has a decent amount of coverage. And then I'll make a brighter version and a darker version. Darker version is going to be a little earthier, so I'm going to add some red and a darker blue. Ultramarine blue and our iron oxide for the dark green. That actually might work for our darkest value. And then I'll just mix the very bottom of this into that medium green to get a smooth transition color that we can pick up. There we go. It's nice and oaky. I just need a warmer version for the trunk. And I'm going to mix that color right over here. And red is a very powerful pigment, so if you're not sure how much to add, start with a small amount of what you think you need and then add more, because if you can very easily overpower whatever you have going on. I'm going to scoot this color over because I am going to use some of that, but instead of just annihilating my dark green supply, I'm going to add more ultramarine blue. Now cadmium red is a warm red, and so you're going to get this is not going to create purple, it's going to create a more muted color. And that's what we're looking for. Okay, that's our bark color. Our bark color, our dark green, our medium green, and then our light greens are sunset colors, the dark side of our sky, and then the dirt will just be the trunk colors coming down and getting tinted with white. So we look good. The light rays are going to be at the very end. Okay, I'm going to put this little spatula aside and let's get started in that sky. I usually would pick up the filbert for the sky step, but the sky is happening in very angular, small sections of this painting, so I think it'll be a lot easier to wedge in with the flat brush. This is a 1/4 inch flat. And I'm going to start with the warm colors in the sky, which is right here at our sunspot. It's pretty white in the very middle. I'm going to start there. I'm going to go a lot bigger than it is, and then I'm going to blend back with the yellow. I'm not going to worry too much if I overlap some of my pencil drawing. We're going to be painting over all of this anyway, and you can easily see through that warm color. I'm going to add just a touch of the orange around the very edges of this area. Grabbing a little bit more yellow to make sure that's a smooth transition. You can go back and forth here until you get it right. This is the focal point, so it's okay investing some time into the spot. This tree line right here is going to be very, very warm. Mixing right on the painting. I put down a little bit of red to warm up that tree line. I'm doing this while all the paint is wet, just to get it a little bit blurred and well mixed. If you want later, you can always glaze over this area to get it a little bit lighter. Just dabbing on a little bit of straight cadmium yellow just to show areas of light kind of piercing through that light foliage at the top of the trees. And making sure there's no repeating shapes right there. That feels about right. I'm just going to continue that peach over behind this branch just a little bit, and then it's going to get olive green pretty quickly. And you'll get an olive green by mixing your medium green in with your peach. You don't need too much of this color. It's going to be largely covered up by the foreground foliage. There's little bits of light showing through that. It's a nice little detail. Can lighten up some of the green and some spots to show the shape of the tree. And then darken up that color, that tree line, as you're heading towards the side of your painting. And keep it really loose. Okay, now the tree line over here is a little bit lower, but it's about the same distance from the trees, from the sun, that is. So you can use the same technique there. Keep that olive mixing off to the side. So we're still going to need to use that orange. Using the peach color at the tops of these obscured shapes here, I can still see the illustration of my branches, and that color is going to just fade into the sky. I don't want any hard lines on this side taking you off the canvas, or the paper rather. Now on this side there is some apricot clouds. I'm going to put them in the places where they are, which is extending out from the sun a bit. Maybe just a touch right here. Touch here, here, on the right, and then a bit on the left. Now I'm going to blend that with some yellow. Just vague cloud shapes. They're all going to be behind branches, so it's going to be obscured by a lot. You just want the magical dancing colors coming through those branches. Picked up some yellow with a little bit of white for just additional coverage and a little bit of contrast, just a little touch. Just put your paint brush strokes down in a way that is cloud-like. You don't have to have the specific shapes in mind. They're not the focus of this composition anyway. Okay, now at about this far away from the sun, you're going to want to transition from the white and the peach to a white and blend that back towards the sun, so it's a soft transition. After you have all the yellow blended to a whiter color, then we're going to start adding blue. If you add blue straight over yellow, especially if it's wet, it'll just turn to green. And I've seen green in skies work just fine. I'm just not a big fan. I'm going to go a little bit lighter at the horizon line towards the left. I'm going to leave this as it is, I think. I think that looks nice, just like that. Okay, so I'm going to go to my lightest blue. and I'm going to blend from the outside of the painting towards the white. I'm just painting around the branches very generally. I'm not being super particular and exacting. I'm just painting right over the little branches, but keeping my layers light so I'm not blacking anything out. Unless it does need to be covered over completely. In the case of this one spot, there was a pencil mark that was not welcome. Mostly though, I'm keeping these brush strokes really light. I'm keeping the paint really light in color. Moving out from the sun further, I'm going to increase the color of the blue. I'm just going to pick up paint from down my little blue gradient here. The same thing here, I'm putting it down further away from the sun and then pulling it back towards the light. Careful not to blend too far. Transparency of the paint will change as it dries, so don't be surprised if you feel like you need to go back to a spot. almost right. I'm going to add just a hint of purple into the sky on the right side, just in some really vague cloud type shapes, and up towards that corner. I like for the corners of the painting to be a little bit darker, just a little bit. We'll keep your eye in the center of the painting. Okay, once you're feeling good about your sky gradient, keeping in mind that you're going to be going over it a lot with branches and foliage, so you don't have to be super picky about the blending. Just get the color down, get the coverage that you need, and then we are going to move on to the foreground grass. I'm going to start with some really bright grasses, and we're going to keep on using the flat because that's going to do us just fine in this regard. You're going to pick up your bright green in a really sketchy fashion. Put in your brightest grass. You will be highlighting the edges with yellow after all of this is dry. Just really light back and forth sketchy brush strokes works here. Can be just a touch darker as you move away from the sun. There's some more bright green grass on the right side as well. But I'm going smaller with the brush strokes, and I'm pulling up from the ground line. It's a little bit more vague. It's further away from the viewer, so now a little bit darker green. And go in for another layer. Cover about 50% of the bright green grass that you put down. And this will give the whole thing dimension. I'll put a little bit of that green just on the bottom of this distant grass. There we go. Now it's going to get quite a bit darker with the next layer. I'm going to try out that darkest green, but I'm going to start in the bottom. And drag up. Okay, I'm feeling that I'm gonna need to let that dry and come back and do another coat. Now over on the right side. That's a lot more subtle. I'm going to drag down from the tree line as well. And then blend that up into those vague background trees. I think that's giving us quite a nice effect there. Those are gonna disappear off the side, not pull you off the side. When the left side is dry, give it another coat if you feel like it needs it. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm going to use a combination of flat brush strokes and then sideways brush strokes to get bigger strands of grass. This depends on your preference. I like using bigger, vaguer brush strokes closer to the edges of the painting. I think this is a good time to tackle the dirt. So I'm going to bring some white down to the bottom of my palette, and I'm going to tint some of these dark earthy tones that we got going on, see what that gives us. Okay, that looks like something we can probably use. I'm going to try that out. Yep. Now I am going to drag this up over the grass in certain spots. And I'm going to use horizontal brush strokes to help convey this dirt. If you're mixing this paint with the same transparent yellow oxide that I am, you're going to notice that this is pretty darn transparent, so you're going to have to do a couple of coats, but that's going to give you more texture. So I'm going to go ahead and work with it. Got to give this paint a solid try. A little darker as you are at the edge of the painting. And bigger brush strokes as well. That'll help it out so much. If you notice your paint lifting, then move to another part of the painting and let that dry, or just take a break and let that dry. I'm going to move to this light spot of dirt. It's a bunch lighter, which is great. That means we add a little bit of white, which is going to give us a little bit more coverage. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm overlapping just on the bottom a little bit. And then I'm going to brush back some of that darker color to give this whole area some texture and some depth. Kind of blend it towards the foreground a bit. All right, I am gonna let that dry. I am gonna switch to the script brush or liner. My #1 liner brush, and I'm gonna put in some really, really bright greens. Just on the very tops of the grass. I'm gonna use yellow and white. And whenever I add a brighter hue to an area to highlight, to show sun, I do a smaller amount. Like with each step up that you go brighter, you'll want to do 30 to 60% less so that your highlights have impact. I'm going to sharpen up that liner, and I'm going to start on the brightest grasses. Trying to keep in mind there is going to be light rays going over a lot of this stuff, but you know, not everything. You'll be able to pick and choose a little bit what's going to get covered and what's not. So any lovely little details that you want to keep from these initial steps, you can just put light rays around it. You don't necessarily have to cover it up. It's not a rule. Okay, now for some little highlights on the right side of the tree. Okay, now I think all the dirt is pretty well dry. You do another layer if you see fit. I'm going to darken it up a little bit on the edge. Okay, I'm gonna pull some of those green grasses over that dirt that I put right there. About a medium green, medium to dark. And then I'm gonna pull some down, and this is a more subtle detail. I'm gonna pull some down even in the bottom shadowed area into that dirt. That's gonna help set the grass in the scene. They're gonna look more integrated with each other instead of separate masses. But it's all in the shadow, so it's subtle. Okay, I think we're pretty well done with grass. I'm pretty happy with the effects there. Although, you know, now that we're talking about it, there is one area that's drawing my attention, and it's here. I feel like, well, in the reference photo, they're almost that dark. But it's like, it's almost, it's not quite. I'm just gonna tint those and do a little bit of a lighter green wash right over the top of that. And there we go. Now's the fun part. Now we can start really laying big amounts of paint on our trunk and large branches. I'm going to go back to the 1/4 inch flat brush for that. Now I've used a lot of the dark tone that we mixed for this. I'm going to take a big chunk of ultramarine blue and our magenta. I'm mixing up an incredibly dark purple, and then I'm gonna add just enough of our iron oxide to make it a chromatic black. And hopefully it has the pigment to cover. We're gonna find out pretty soon here. That's really gonna be the kicker. Feels a little bit purple. I added a little bit of our medium green just to mute that down. Take some of the purple out. I want to check it again. Okay, well, it's a lot more neutral. It's on the cool side of neutral though. No, it's cool. I think it's okay. I think we're still gonna use it because we're gonna go from the warm bark color that's gonna radiate around the sunspot and then extend out. to a cooler color. So we'll just start with the sunspot. All right, flat brush. Got our warmest color here. It's kind of like a tomato soup color. Nice red brown. Putting this paint on nice and thick, I'm edging up to the edge of the bark. I want that line to be pretty clean. Covering up any pencil lines you got going on. You can go a little further than you think you need to, because you can cover this up and blend it in with the next darker trunk color. I'm still using a flat brush here, but I'm being very careful. Now it's time to transition to the next darker area of tree. Okay, getting a little bit further away from the sun, I'm using that cooler color. Just softly dragging it down the tree, making sure that just my edges are nice and tight over any overlap that happened in previous layers. The blending, don't worry about making it smooth. If you leave texture here, it's gonna show the tree texture. So just use brush strokes that complement the branch direction. Just paint up to all those edges. Now I'm all the way on the far side of the tree, and I'm using that darkest value that we have mixed. Let's try to make sure that your tree branches are a little bit thicker towards the trunk, and then slowly get smaller towards the outside of the painting. They can maintain their width for a while, as long as they eventually get smaller towards that edge. I am still using the 1/4 inch flat, but if you don't feel comfortable, go ahead and switch to something smaller. Almost there with the big branches. Just adding that bark color to our foreground, like literally the ground in the front, just to set the bottom of that trunk in the scene, make it look a little bit more at home. Okay, now that last big branch that goes off. And then we'll be switching to a smaller brush. Okay, now it's time to switch to a smaller brush here because things are getting a lot smaller. I might even switch to the liner because it's going to pull paint further. Before I do all these oak tree branches, I'm going to do these little background trees just while I'm thinking about it. And I'm going to make their value a little bit lighter. I'm going to do that with some of this yellow melon. That should just about do it. Okay, I'm going to pull these lines from the bottom. Just trying to blend the bottom of those trunks down. into that dark green. You feel like one of your branches got a little too thick out from the trunk, you can go back and just thicken up that trunk shape a little bit, and that might be able to save your tree form. Okay, I think that's about right for that area. That feels good. I don't want them to be competing with this big dark trunk. There are some light green foliage intermixed, just dispersed lightly in this tree, but I think I might add that in at the end, and that'll be easier to keep track of that way. I'm going to start with all of the secondary branches that I have penciled out. Pulling from the trunk out. That'll be easier because you could pick up your brush away from your painting as you go down the branch. This is really a meditative part. Can't really hurry this along too much more. Okay, I'm mixing a much warmer color because I'm going to hit that foliage that's right in front of the sun. Everything around here is pretty well dry, so I don't have to worry about that. Making sure that all my pencil is covered up. adding a little bit of that warm color to the sun side of some of the other branches. And then I might mix back some of the darker bark a little bit more in this middle area. Okay, now to get some better leaf shapes, I'm going to use a point brush, and then I'm going to put more branches after I get these leaf shapes in, and I'm going to use a number 2 point for that. Adding a little bit of the medium green into this shadow color. Okay. I'm going to be adding shapes that are going to be kind of vague. They're going to look like anything from individual leaves all the way up to straight giant blobby smears. I'm going to try to stay loose and vague and be lighter with my distribution of leaves as I get out away from the branches. It's going to be lighter, but I don't necessarily want them all to be connected. Some of them will be overlapping the bigger branches, and that's no big deal. These here are a little bit lighter, closer to the background color. Added a little bit of green to that iron oxide. Actually like that color quite a bit. I think that is pretty well nailed it for the foliage that gets the most light. I'm going to take that golden green up the tree higher. I'm going to dab over these little foreground leaves, make them look very similar to what we're painting in now. As you get these on, you will feel more bold to put bigger shapes over some of them. So just honor that process and know that we're going to be dragging some more branches over these guys. I'm mixing more of that gold green as I go along. Here's a couple of those light green, more saturated green leaves I said we were going to add. Just really light distribution of those. They're more like a little accent, indicating more of a spring season. After you put on a good amount of that light and medium green color, then you can go back to the shadow leaf color and just place some over those lit leaves and then extend out from there. Because those lights are actually away from us. They're on the other side of the tree, so they're going to be covered with some shadow leaves, as well as some other little branches. So and anywhere those light leaves go over dark branches, just darken that up a bit. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I like the amount of light green leaves. I think that looks good too. Now a couple more little skinny branches. Scraping together the dark value that I have left on my palette. Add a little bit of water to my liner for control. And then I'm just gonna somewhat flippantly add a bunch of tiny little branches going in every which way. They just have to look like they're connected to something. Make sure to get some branches over those little light colored leaves that we put in. That'll give us a lot of dimension. Make sure to get any leaf shapes that are lighter than the trunk, that are overlapping the trunk. Paint those out. Don't be afraid to do branches that are disappearing into the foliage as well. Those could be moving away from you. Or coming out from within the tree, and that's totally fine too. I was once told by an instructor to not make my branches so polite, which is to say that they were never crossing over each other. They were graphic and individual and a little too clean for his liking, so I consciously try to make branches that are a little bit more naturally placed, but it's a practice. I think I feel pretty happy with those. Oh, there's a little bit more light green covering up a primary branch. I'm gonna grab that. And then this right here is not super convincing. I feel like that grass would be a lot darker if it was immediately in front of that branch right there. So I'm gonna have to darken that up, drag that down a bit, that dark green. It can be lighter as it comes up above it, but not right overlapping. That's too weird. Doesn't show correctly. Pretty easily fix that though. All right, so the last thing is going to be beams of light. I am going to make sure that my flat brush is really clean. I'm not going to use tape lines for this because it's such a small painting. I'm just going to clear the area around it, but first everything needs to be really dry where I'm dragging these. And the paint is going to need to be very translucent. With a little bit of yellow in it. Sometimes I will use a separate palette just for this technique. Wouldn't be the worst idea. I don't have anything super handy, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna start at the sunspot and I'm just gonna drag straight out, and I'm gonna try to go fast, and I can keep the clean water handy just in case I want to blend it. So, and I'm gonna blend it with this filbert. It's gonna be nice and clean. All this stuff is gonna be handy because you're gonna wanna work fast. Filbert brush, blend the edge, and then blend the other edge. Okay, I'm going to clean that filbert brush off, get it ready again, and then grab my flat and do another beam. Same thing, here goes another one out from the center. Now, if you don't like what you did, you could just wipe away with that filbert brush and then try again. If everything's dry underneath it, that's okay. You got a little bit of leeway. You can come back again for another try on that. Okay, we're getting there now. As we're moving around, you can see that some of these are more transparent than others. I am gonna be overlapping another layer onto some spots of some of them, giving this transitioning light appearance. And also another thing to note, you're gonna be more comfortable dragging away from your torso than you are gonna be like in. So if you need to reposition yourself or reposition your painting to make a straight line, then don't feel alone, because I would be doing this too if it didn't screw it up for you guys. So I'm just gonna do what I can, which will be fine. There's not as many light rays going out towards those lighter branches. Most of them are going over these dark shapes, so I kind of lucked out in that regard. Also, don't be afraid to like wait until this dries. If you need to put your hand down to make a nice clean line, part of the reason it's nice for beginners to use acrylic, or really anybody to use acrylic, is that you can put your hand down. You don't have to use those bracer bars, which is very nice. Our last ray that's going off to the left. Some of them are going to be tinted orange here pretty soon as well. Gonna keep that orange pretty transparent though. Don't worry too much about some hard line towards the sunspot. We can reblend some white there pretty easily. as this dries, you will see transparency increase, and then you could just add more as you see fit. In the photograph, it even gets darker oranges in some spots, but that's being pretty bold. Maybe I can work up to it. We're getting there. I do believe this orange, yellow, needs to be tinted on just the closest branches and leaves that are right in front of the sun. That's what I'm feeling needs to happen here. Just to really convey that glow. Okay, now I feel like that's enough light rays coming out from the center. I'm just going to define a couple parts of them. That one, actually, that one I feel like is good. Maybe just a little bit more here. A little bit more defined in the middle. I like that as an accent. That's kind of a bigger beam. Okay, those need to be softened up a bit. Okay, now I'm tinting some of the beams of light and transitioning them a little bit. And of course, blending and erasing and redoing with the filbert brush. And for a second there, I thought we weren't going to use them this painting, but no. Super important. Okay, I'm feeling pretty happy about those light rays. I think I'm gonna leave them just as they are. Oh, no, I take that back. You know, I always say that, and then as it's coming out of my mouth, I see one or two little areas that need attention, and you might see that for days after you paint something. I just want to bring a white ray like that, and maybe brighten that one up just a bit to break up that line. Okay, now since we've been pulling lines from the center for a while now, I want to just brighten up that spot. Any lines that you made that you want to get rid of, this is a good time. Just plop some white in the middle, and then you might want to switch to a smaller brush, and I certainly am. I'm switching to a number 1 point brush, and I'm just going to keep it really thick in the middle where the sun is originating from, and then I am going to blend. Blend that bright opaque white paint towards those rays. Dry brushing to make the paint more transparent as we get closer. To those rays. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. I don't want those lines to start until they go over the tree. So that's what I'm after right now with what I'm doing. And I might have to wait for that to dry to get more paint on there. Brush strokes will flatten out a bit, but not entirely, so just be happy with what you put down if you're using thick paint. Let's see if there's anything that we can doll up while we're waiting for that white paint to dry. Are there any negative shapes that you want to add into the foliage to make the tree a little bit lighter in weight? So I might do a little bit of that. Not big ones though. These are going to be small and in groups of 3 to 5. I'm going to try to pay attention to the colors that are behind these leaf shapes and do not put them over any big branches. That's going to look odd. So try not to put them anywhere where your rays of light are going to make it look like it's over it, which would be not the right answer. There, I got some dark blue negative shapes, some light blue. Oh, see, that one might be in front of a branch. I'm gonna wipe that one off. A little bit of effort. And thankfully, I still have that color available. Goodness. Okay. Actually feel pretty happy with those negative shapes in the tree, so I'm gonna leave that as it is. Well, no, there's one more spot. It's a little bit bulky right in here. There we go. Now, can we touch up the white yet, I wonder? If we're very gentle. Okay. Now I'm looking at the reference photo, and I think I'm pretty happy with that. The light shafts all tint the tree, but they don't take the value down to nothing. It's glowing from the middle. These guys aren't too distracting. Which they're even darker value in the reference photo if you've noticed, but I wanted to take them down a bit so they don't steal you away over in that direction. The sunset's nice. It's a little bit warmer than it is in the reference photo, but I think I like that. I'm okay with that. We've got nice contrast, nice lead lines. It's pretty attractive all the way around. I can't wait to see how this looks in the frame, and there's going to be no tape peel for this one at all, so it'll all be down to the frame, showing it off. So I will be posting a photo of that very, very soon. And I hope you enjoyed this painting process video. So until next time, happy painting!